Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to spend the next few minutes going over one of my favorite strategies. The 50-30-20 strategy is what we're going to be talking about today. Not only getting a better understanding of what it actually involves, but also how to utilize it and set it up inside of Sequence. So with that, let's get started. So the 50-30-20 strategy was actually popularized by Elizabeth Warren, and it was a pretty basic and simple principle. It's really breaking down your monthly spending into three distinct sections. The first one, the 50, stands for 50% of your income being allocated towards your needs. Those are mandatory expenses like rent, mortgage, utilities, healthcare costs, all of the staples that we have. And if you have kids like I do, childcare costs, the things that we can't avoid and we know we're going to be able to or going to need to spend each and every month. The next 30 stands for 30% of your income, which are your wants, things like cable, internet, phone, dining out, entertainment, those pieces, the fun part of life that we get to and want to pay for. And the last 20 stands for paying off debt and your savings. So again, 50-30-20, breaking it down into those three buckets, pretty straightforward strategy. So let's see how we actually build it inside of Sequence. So I'm over in the playground environment. It'll be slightly different than what you see when you're actually logged into your account, but the core principles stay the same. You might be familiar with this already, but you always need to start by adding a port. So if you haven't already done so, you need to add a port. And you might be asking, what's a port? Port's just a fancy way of saying the connection point from your current income into Sequence. So you might be a traditional employee getting a salary. Great. You might have multiple income sources, rental income, freelance, your employment. Great. You can add as many ports as you want. Each of your income streams can have its own port and should have its own port in order to help make sure that all that money is flowing into Sequence. So I'm going to go with a pretty basic situation right here and start by adding one port. And in our situation, I'm going to say John for our sample case, salary. And we're going to create that port. Great. And you'll know, again, inside of the playground environment, it's going to automatically create some random numbers here. But in our case, let's say that John is making $10,000 a month, just to make it a little bit more fun. Great. So now we've created the connection from the income inside to Sequence. Next, we're going to start by adding some pods. These pods are essentially sub-accounts, actually real bank accounts that we open up on your behalf because it's a really easy way to send money throughout the Sequence system and can be done very quickly. So I'm going to add a pod, and this one we're going to call needs. And I like to title these really clearly so that I know what the rule is. I'm going to call this needs 50. I'm going to create that pod. Great. And when you click on it, as you'll note, again, it creates the random number, but you'll see it actually creates a real bank account with a routing and account number so that you can use these accounts to actually pay for the things that you want to. So we have needs at 50. I'm going to create another pod. Wants at 30%. And lastly, savings and debt, 20%. This is the hierarchy that I typically like. Start with the incomes up top and then start to create the pods below. So now that we've created all of the pods that we want, we can start to create the rules by clicking that plus sign. And you'll see when you connect it to the destination, it'll give you this option. You can either trigger by incoming funds, meaning whenever money comes in through that port, through that connection point, we can trigger a rule, or we can trigger it by date. Today, we're going to focus on triggering by incoming funds because that makes the most sense for this rule that we're working on right now. So I'm going to click that, and you'll see the trigger is when funds are received, and then we're going to move into actions, right? And so at this point in time, transfer a percentage of incoming funds. I am going to do 50% to needs. And now I can simply click the next 30%. I want to go to wants, and I can add another account, and it auto-populates with the remaining 20 to savings and debt. And now I click save, and you'll see, boom, all three of my rules have been created. So every time money comes in from my connection point, what we call a port, into Sequence, it will simply send the appropriate amount of money to each of those destinations, each of those accounts. Hope this was helpful. In the next video, we'll be going over how you can connect your actual bank accounts if you have checking and savings accounts already and want to utilize those. We'll be discussing how you can best do that to make sure that you can fully adopt the 50-30-20 strategy in order to help you reach your financial goals. Thanks so much.